Welcome to the Growing Up Bananas podcast, where we dissect the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being yellow when I feel so white.
My name is Ethan. Sam sits next to me, and in many ways, I sit next to him.
What's in store for today?
So we're going to talk about the first time we realized that we were of a different race, how that's affected us now in certain ways. Later on, we've got Kevin coming in, which will be great, and we'll have a chat to him about all aspects of his life. Let's get into it.
Excited to speak to Kevin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the scene for you guys. We're going to talk about what we looked like growing up.
I looked good.
I can't say the same for myself. So for those that know me, you guys know me that you guys know that I'm pretty doughy at the best of times. When I was younger, it was significantly worse, but maybe for the better in this case. I wasn't really too aware of race. Now that I reflect back on it, I should have been, but definitely wasn't at the time. So to set the scene, I didn't speak any English until I went to kindy. I think at home, mum and dad just spoke Korean. They had Korean friends, so that's all I knew. And then when I first started going to school, I guess most of my friends at the time, I didn't really see color. My best friend was half Chinese, half Australian. I had 2 Italian friends and 1 Irish. And yeah, I think in hindsight, we were all like, I guess at the time, wogs was a slur, just like, maybe chink for Asians.
Yeah.
So we were all grouped together, and that was us.
So you definitely think you guys resonated because you were of a different background?
Yeah, look, when we went to each other's houses, like there were things that we all had in common. So like shoes off inside the house, eat together as a family. We had all those kind of similar traits.
Yeah.
And then when I went to high school, all of my friends were still white, but my best friend was Indonesian, and he's still one of my friends to this day.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that I've really kept in solid contact with since leaving school as well.
That's good.
And the moment where I became aware that I was actually Asian was when I went to uni. Went to the University of Queensland. Shout out. And at that point, all of my friends were Asian.
That's fascinating to me that it took you, 20 years almost to realize that you weren't. I mean, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but
no,
it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. We kind of put these boxes on people, stereotypes and all these things, but it took you 20 years to realize that there were different races.
Yeah, in a way it did. Like when we went to primary school, there were people of, like even though they're the minority, there were people of every color at the school, and I was friends with all of them. It didn't really matter, but I wasn't conscious of it until I was almost an adult.
Well, it probably speaks to your upbringing, your surroundings, all those things, the conditions that you were raised in, that race just wasn't a factor.
Yeah, mum and dad were always very, positive people, so maybe that's something that was just put onto me. So
we need more of that.
Anyway, tell us about you. You're very different to what I was.
Yeah, slightly different. So born in South Africa, obviously the racial history there, don't really need to go into too much detail of that, but I was born in the early 90s, so just around the time that apartheid finished. So I guess the communities hadn't quite come together just yet. Everything was on the way. So growing up, we had maids, we had gardeners that were non-Asian. I kind of asked the question to myself is why were they doing that? Why were, the Asian and the white people not? And I kind of just, in my head, and sometimes externally voiced why, and asked those questions. And
sorry, Ethan, if they weren't Asian, what were they?
They were usually black.
Okay.
This is back then in the early 90s.
Yeah, we understand times have changed, so that's all. That's sweet.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, it's a racially conscious country, as we probably know.
Yeah.
And for me, very early on, to probably cut to the chase, very early on, I realized that race was a thing, and you notice race. Well, we did anyway.
So grew up very differently. And how old were you when you came to Australia again?
I was 11.
11. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went straight to Mackay from there.
Yes.
So you went from having maids, cleaners.
Basically, no offense to any of the housewives that listen to this, but the South African housewives have it good. They don't have to do too much. I've accused my mum many times of this lifestyle, and she agrees.
And I guess before we move on to what life was like in Australia for you, what did your friends look like in South Africa?
Yeah, so most of my friends at school, because I went to a predominantly Afrikaans school, so they were mainly white. We had a lot of family friends growing up. The Chinese community in Cape Town or South Africa is quite tight-knit, borderline incestuous if you want to go down that path, but that's their words, not mine. Basically, everyone knows each other. Everyone knows everyone's business, so that community is quite tight, and that came off the back of the end of apartheid. So the Chinese community, this is before my time, so I'm just probably relaying what I was told from my parents and family. They weren't really allowed to participate in sport. Obviously, school was segregated, so they established their own community, and they had this thing called an Easter tournament where all the different states or the different cities would come together and play sport and kind of just mingle and do their thing every year. So that used to be really popular, but obviously as things progress and the communities change, times change, it probably got a little bit less popular as it went along.
Yeah. Okay, so just to clarify, in school, you guys sort of mingled within the races.
Yeah, that's right. So for me, I mean, sort of spoken about before, but I was one of, 4 or 5 Asian people in my school.
At your school, damn.
In South Africa, that is. In Australia, it was even worse. But yeah, it's just always been a massive minority.
Okay, sweet. What about in Mackay? Mackay's pretty up north Queensland, a little bit more rural, especially at the time. Yeah. How'd you fit in there?
Yeah, so for me, I've always found my friends through sport.
Yeah.
I'm not a particularly charismatic person at the best of times. So sport was usually the only thing that got me friends. I was fortunately quite decent at cricket, hockey, bit of athletics. So most of my friends usually came from sport, and the stereotype believes true where the Asians are usually the few of them are usually in the classroom, not necessarily outside. So most of my friends are white.
That's cool. And were you aware of being, like, when you came to school in Australia, was it very apparent that how did you know you were Asian?
So you from a young age you're of a different race, so you're going to stand out, especially as a minority in a school, in a predominantly white school.
Yeah.
So I always knew that I was going to stand out for the good and the bad.
What gave it away though? Is it just appearance, or was it anything else?
Yeah, it's appearance. It's the food that you eat. It's like you said before, you went to your WOG friends' houses, they took their shoes off. Little things like that. I always wondered why our family ate so much rice and noodles. Whereas, I'd go to a friend's house and I'd get a jam sandwich, which was great. Not complaining, but it just wasn't what you would usually eat at home. Speaking
of food, I've got a cool little thing that Mum and Dad told me a few years ago, which was that when they first came to Australia, they were working at a little factory, I think Seiko.
Yeah.
And they...
As in the watch brand?
Yeah.
Okay, a little factory.
Just small.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, when Dad just used to take food that Mum made and to work and eat there, and they used to give him shit for having garlic breath afterwards. So then
it's smelling out the whole office.
It's literally
the smell of fried rice or something, or kimchi.
Yeah, mostly. I imagine it's mostly kimchi, but because he used to cop so much shit, Mum was very conscious of that when she sent us to school and made our lunches. So when we went to school, we actually had they were really cool sandwiches, but sandwiches nonetheless, just for that reason. Yeah, you try to do whatever you can to fit in, I suppose. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that made school for me made me go through school very blissfully ignorant. Yeah, so on that, you've always, like you said, you've always been a bigger kid. You've never really, I don't know if you've been picked on. I'd say you probably hadn't, mainly because you're a aesthetically pleasing
Man, you're just a big guy as well, and you're a nice guy, so I think you'd probably be one of the last to be picked on. But for you, a lot of our friends have spoken about it, where as an Asian in a white school, you're usually the smallest. You know, you've got the smallest eyes, you've got weird food. You probably hit puberty a bit later than most other races, let's be honest, if at all, at times. So for you, being bigger, maybe that, have you thought about that had an impact on it?
Look, it probably didn't hurt. I actually did go through. I think I started going through puberty I think when I was about 10 years old. That's when my voice broke. But
Jeez.
yeah. Should I tell a story?
Sure.
How I knew my voice broke?
At the age of 10.
At the age of 10. It was Miss Brown. She was a really attractive teacher that we had, and I was sitting next to someone, and apparently I used to talk a lot, so I was just, whispering or talking quietly with one of my friends, and then Miss Brown said, "Sam, your voice is deeper than everyone else's. I know when you're talking." And that's how I know that my voice had broken at the age of 10.
I thought you would have a blowout or something.
No blowouts here.
No blowouts. Yeah, it's fascinating. So I guess for you then, talking about the friends, I sort of spoke about mine.
Yeah.
You sound like you resonated towards the immigrants, not necessarily the ones that, the immigrant families who had a bit of different culture.
Yeah, look, definitely not consciously, but
Yeah.
definitely unconsciously, yeah, 100%.
So in hindsight, yeah, you're looking back and seeing, okay, maybe that was a connection we had. We're sort of in the same boat.
Yeah, and I think that's still the same now. Is there anything you wanted to speak about in your high school or uni?
No, not really. I think for me, it's more about when I realized race was a thing. Like I said, really early. School, made all my friends through sport. Fortunately that I had that hobby to share with friends and all that. But we'll probably talk about school at a different time for another episode. I think it's an whole topic by itself.
Yeah, sweet. So I guess the thing that we want to move on to next is sort of we've spoken about when we worked out we were Asian, and it's sort of how do we embrace that, and to make things, or how do we embrace things and then use that to better us, or embrace being Asian. So I guess in our intro episode, we spoke about how we integrate our Asianness into food, how we integrate everything into travel. How do we embrace our Asianness to make us better people in general? Or how did we embrace that to make friends, etc.?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to be honest, I didn't embrace it at all growing up. I wanted to try be as assimilated as quote-unquote white as I could.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why my accent probably picked up quicker than maybe my older brothers. Not Mark, the plumber. His accent's thick. But for me, yeah, maybe it was that. And it was also probably going back to the fact that I knew I would stand out, good or bad, being a different race, a minority. So I did whatever I could to try and fit in.
So you're a mixed bag. Was it a South African accent or a Chinese accent we're talking about?
Well, blame mum and dad. They never took me to... they took me to Chinese school for like a semester when I was like 7.
Yeah.
Did not pay off whatsoever. So it was a thick South African accent. So in South Africa, you have a lot of... it's like its own group of people, the coloureds.
Yeah.
So it's usually the mixed race people, and they're quite funny. They're actually really cool. And a lot of kids growing up like to imitate the coloured accent.
Yeah.
So it's not quite your typical South African accent.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gross, to be honest. But tried to shed that as quickly as I could.
Unlike you, I was in the top class of my Korean school, and they had it in terms of, I guess, tiers, and I was in the highest one. But I have a sneaky feeling that was only due to my age.
Why was the class, or the class younger than you?
No, I was. Let's be honest. For all my friends, you guys know I was shit at Korean. Still am, laced with a thick
I've seen you
Australian
order
accent.
at the restaurant. You're solid doing that.
Look, that's all I've got. But yeah, so I think I'm the same as you. When I was younger, I didn't really embrace learning Korean. It was just a chore that I had to do on weekends at Korean school. But I think you might agree with this, but in hindsight, it's something that I really wished I'd tried a lot more.
100%.
And embrace the Asian, because I guess the more you know, knowledge is power, right? The more you know, the more we can, I guess, share with other people, the better it is.
So back to when we were talking about, did I try to embrace being Asian? Did I use it to my advantage? Not really, to be honest. It's probably only after a couple of years out of school when I started hanging out with my current wife. Most of her friends are Asian, and suddenly it became cooler to be Asian. Suddenly I wasn't the smallest guy.
Your biceps were never small, mate.
Oh, yes, they were. 60 kilos in school. That was like 65. But yeah, suddenly I wasn't the smallest. Suddenly I had interests that were slightly different. Most of my friends growing up, so we played sport. We love sport. So that's kind of what you are. But hanging out with other Asians who don't necessarily follow sport as closely, there's other things they're interested in. Suddenly I was a bit different. And that probably made me feel a bit cooler, if I'm thinking.
And I think because of that understanding, without having that clash of culture, it just makes things a lot easier, in that you don't get why do we need to do this, or what do we have to do this for. It's just, we need to get this done. Like, okay, sure. And some examples of that maybe I've got to get this assignment done. I can't hand it in late, because you know that if you do, there'll be a lot of trouble for you on the other end.
Yeah, usually involving chopsticks.
Or wooden spoon.
Rear ends.
Lucky wooden spoons or feet for me.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's all interesting. And probably my last point on that, probably a question to you, is how have you then taken being Asian to shape you who you are today? Have you really embraced your Korean side?
Yes, I embrace it.
How? Other than eating Korean food every day?
There used to be lots of things I didn't see reason for, but as I've gotten older, as I've matured, I've seen the value of it. And they're things that I'd like to pass on as well if I decide to have kids.
Yeah.
So you embracing all these things that we've just spoken about, how do you use those in your friendship? How do you apply that in real life in integrated life without bringing you detriment? So how do you use it to better yourself or better the people around you?
I think with anything, you can take your prior experiences, what you've learned from family, everything around you. You can use that and you can kind of nitpick and what you feel is actually going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to customs, things like that, I think, there's a lot of good things that families have passed down over time. There's a lot of things as well that I don't necessarily agree with, but just nitpicking it and kind of being your own person, using what you know, has definitely helped me become who I am today.
Okay. Just one last thing before we get Kevin in on the action. You've mentioned that most of your friends are white at this point.
Yeah.
To assimilate and to fit in with those people as well as the Asians, how did you find, how is it just the things that you have in common, or what is it that brings you guys together?
Yeah, so it's mainly sport. It's mainly things like drinking, doing things like that, outside of work, outside of your normal 9 to 5, and just having the same hobbies. Yeah. So for me, that's probably the main thing that brings me to people. Like I said, back in the day, it was always through sport. It was always through those activities, and that's how I've probably got most of my closest friends. Yeah. What about for you?
Yeah, it's definitely hobbies, finding things in common. So whether it be hiking, whether it be, I guess, exercising or other forms of exercise, whether it be playing cards, whether it be, we've gone through various stages of life, so gambling in the past, whether it be work. It's all those things that draw people in together, and then just being the best person you can be, I guess.
Would you say your brother and sister would have the same view growing up, where they didn't see race?
That's a good question. I've never actually talked to them about that.
Because it's interesting they went through the very similar circumstances in the upbringing and all that, but they're different people. They're going to have different things that get them going that they don't like, and potentially they just saw everything differently. Maybe they did see race. So it's interesting to know if that's something that they did see.
I think my brother definitely, he was very similar to me growing up, and then I think he's veered more towards the Asian path as opposed to just somewhere. I view myself somewhere
So
in
he's
the
really
middle.
embraced the culture, and he's benefiting from it, from being like that.
Yeah, for sure. What about your brothers?
I'd say definitely my middle brother would. He's probably the least Asian person I know. One off.
Probably
There's not really much about him that culturally there's not a hell of a lot that he's taken on. He might disagree. I don't know. I would say that's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my oldest brother is probably a bit more in the middle.
He's kind of living the dream right now, isn't he?
Well, I guess so. if that's your dream. He's happy. So yeah, I'd say from a racial, from a seeing race, from that point of view, yeah, definitely we probably have very similar views because that's how we grew up, especially in South Africa.
Yeah.
In our household with our family, but how they've actually embraced it, who knows? Maybe that's something we got to talk to them about.
Yeah, sweet. So at one point we'll try to get them on.
Yeah.
Well, we will get. Well, they want to come on. So just to summarize, we've both gone through phases where we've felt more Caucasian than Asian, and then vice versa. And now we're both at a stage where we're comfortable with who we are, and it doesn't matter where our friends come from. We have things that draw us together, whether they be hobbies, whether they be, whatever they are. And yeah, let's go grab Kevin.
Yeah, look forward to it. So guys, really lucky to have Kevin stop by today. He's just in the neighborhood doing his thing at @TheKevinLeo on Instagram. Kev, how are you?
Good, Ethan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you, man. So I'll just quickly to tell the audience how I know Kev and what he's doing here. So known Kev for about 10 years. He went to school with my wife, Alex. He's been a good friend of ours ever since. We've done trips together, stayed in touch, and if you follow him on Instagram, he's in extremely good shape. So we'll talk about that later, and we'll get into it.
Today we're going to talk about when we first realized we were Asian. For me, I realized it, I think, shortly after school when I started going to uni. Prior to that, all my friends were white. After that, during my uni stage, all of my friends ended up being Asian, and I was really confused. And at that point, I realized, shit, I'm yellow. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so we covered off that before. Kev, for you, when was that realization?
I think I kind of knew much earlier because you deal with bullying I did anyway when I was younger. So growing up in Canberra, in a private school, all boys, predominantly white. Moving to Brisbane when I was like 15, so halfway through year 9.
It's a pretty tough time to make the move in relation to your schooling career,
yeah,
I suppose.
I guess so. But overall, my feelings around it was actually positive. I was like, oh, I'm actually looking forward to this, just a big change, something else.
And how was that, I guess, if we dive deeper into that change? I'm assuming your school in Canberra was predominantly Caucasian.
Yeah, for sure. It was literally just me and like one other guy, Edwin. I actually remember his name. It was
the same for us growing up because Sam and I, it was either just our own siblings being the only Asian or some Hong Kong exchange student, but the rest was literally just us.
Yeah.
At about in primary school, I think it was just one other half Asian friend. I had 2 Italian friends and a Irish friend. So I didn't realize.
So they're all immigrants in themselves anyway.
Then in high school we had maybe like 6-7 Asians in our grade when we first started grade 8, and then it slowly grew over time, but yeah, it was very minimal.
Did you guys connect much with those Asians? Like, I'll just give you my example because I wasn't really close with this guy. He was a bit different to me. I was still quite active even when I was younger, like playing basketball and soccer and things like that.
Yeah.
And he was even more traditional, sort of in the books. So yeah, even despite our race being the same, we didn't really connect. So.
And then fast forward to McGregor, which is, what would you say, 80-90% Asian?
I wouldn't say it's that high. It's definitely more multicultural, and obviously it's boys and girls.
Yeah.
But it's definitely very multicultural. I remember there was like Lebanese, Asian, a lot of Vietnamese, some Korean, Chinese, Taiwanese. Shout out to Alan.
Chinese.
Soon.
We're screwed. Yeah, so there was just a huge mix of sort of a melting pot of all
Yeah, it was great.
demographics.
And then like hormones are running and girls everywhere.
Yeah. As opposed to in an all boys school. Just like to put that in there.
Yeah. Didn't you go to an all boys school for a little while?
No, I never did. I went to a Catholic school for most of my schooling,
And
but
that Catholic school was mixed.
mixed, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
So going back to, I guess, Canberra life, can you tell us like what kind of bullying you went through at whether at the time you were aware of that?
Yeah, I was definitely aware of it. Like, it didn't feel good. I guess they just pick on you because you're generally smaller, perceived as weaker. Obviously, you're a minority. You're different. So I guess that's where it came from.
I was always the smallest in all my schools. Obviously, the smallest eyes as well doesn't help.
Yep.
So yeah, it just kind of happens naturally. Survival of the fittest.
Was it?
100%.
Did the bullying come in verbal form, or was it physical, or a bit of both?
Mostly verbal, I'll be honest. Physical is sort of like just shoving, or you're walking down corridors, maybe they bump into you. But there was never any sort of like black eyes and things like that. It was never that extreme. I think if it did, I definitely would have spoken up or something. But it was enough that I think it affected me to a degree. Still remember it, but yeah, I've moved past all of it now, obviously, but definitely not as bad as I think as other people. That's my own.
Yeah, that can take. I guess it can do a lot of damage, both mentally or predominantly mentally if it's verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, like you said, you gotten over it? Do you feel as if you still got the remnants of that lingering sometimes?
Honestly, no. Now where I'm at, mindset wise, it's completely behind me. I'm like really happy with where I'm at now and who I am.
That's sick.
Pretty self-confident and completely changed from who I was. I think if that person could see who I am today, they'd be like pretty happy and proud. So
That's awesome.
glad I've grown out of that sort of thinking. That's actually part of the reason I I did the fitness thing. Like, I want to be able to teach people that sort of mindset. And fitness and working out is just a tool to get there.
So on that, I mean, people who know you, they know you're in ridiculous shape. I'm glad you put your jumper back on because it's feeling a little bit inadequate over here. But is that about the time when you started working out? Was that around that sort of 15?
It was 15, 16, yeah. I remember it was like start of year 9, we had access to a school gym, and I remember going in and, yeah, I loved it. I was working out with my friends. And then when I came here to Brisbane, I started seeking out a gym pretty quick. I think it was year 10 or 11. That's when I got more serious. At shout out to old friends like Braith.
Because I remember when I first met you, you were in good shape. Like, you were working out at the time. Obviously, the diet and all that stuff wasn't probably on point yet. But
but you got those.
But you definitely were. You had massive arms back then too.
The new gains.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess on that, that's probably the next thing we want to start talking about. Is that probably is one of the reasons why you started working out. Obviously wanting to be healthy and fit, but
I think the first one was just stop being skinny and scrawny. Because I think I was like 55 kilos when I first started, 52, 55.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I want to just get bigger or, feel good about myself. So that was the initial sort of thinking behind it. As a teenager, hormones and girls, I think even the first year, 2 years, you're kind of doing it for attention as well from the opposite sex. But I think slowly, maybe toward the end of the first year, second year, you're sort of like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Just doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Your mindset shifts again.
There was that meme that I saw recently. It was the reality versus expectations about gymming. The expectation is all the girls, he's so hot, he's so good, whatever. But the reality is it's the guys like us who are like, man, this dude's in good shape. You probably get way more respect from us than...
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably still getting on the other side, but...
Definitely true, yeah. Even when I started calisthenics, it was the same. It's kind of funny. I don't know, it's still good. I love the community.
Yeah. And then in terms of the progression of the working out, you've really ramped it up the last probably 3 years when you started Cali.
Yeah, the last 4 years now, 4.5 years. It was just before the pandemic, 2018 of March. And then yeah, when the pandemic hit, gyms started closing. I was already working out in parks and getting used to that. So just kept going and ramped it up, doing a lot of outdoor workouts. That's when I met a lot of guys in the calisthenics community, which was awesome. And I was like, oh, I actually miss this. Because in the gym, you kind of just have your headphones in and you're pretty isolated. You do your own thing, you know, maybe say hi to a few regulars or a little head nod here and there. But it's definitely sort of the vibe is you're just on your own and do your own thing and then you go.
Yeah, the Cali guys definitely have their own vibe. They are slightly cooler and way more in much better shape than the rest of the guys. So they've got their own little community going on, which is cool because you found something there that, you know, it's a community that is, I'd say, pretty tight knit.
Yeah.
And everyone sort of gets on. And definitely. I know for you as well, you give a lot of training pointers to guys. It's not about I can do more muscle ups than you.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I was always even giving free advice, just helping out anyone that wanted it. Yeah, that's sort of how I learned that. I was like, I actually kind of like teaching. That's when I sort of got into that.
Free advice. It's not something usually Asians do. Kudos to you.
What do you mean, give free advice?
Well, we want everything free, don't we? Naturally.
I guess natural progression. Like, what do you do for work then?
What do I do for work? So graphic design. That was parents' business in print. Recently started working in government. That's a new job.
No, you haven't. Do you want to talk about it?
Nah, not really.
That's all right. We'll talk about it later.
And then at night I do coaching at Hangar 66 for calisthenics. Yeah. So Hangar 66, for those that don't know, it's a pole studio in South Brisbane. Awesome place. And yeah, I'm one of the calisthenics coaches there, teaching there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
A lot of guys they want to get into Cali. They want to do muscle ups. Is it as simple as you start with, you know, your weighted chin ups and then it's just grind until you just keep progressing?
You'd think so actually, but not quite, because what I've learned teaching there is a lot of people can't even do one pull up or one chin up. So it's about how do you make the progression a lot easier so that you can get to that stage. And you know, you can use resistance bands or use leverage in the way that you move your body. Just different leverages helps. And it's just because I've been doing weightlifting and weight training for like the last 8 to 10 years. So I've applied a lot of that training and learnings into how we do body weight. Because you obviously can't necessarily add weight to yourself. I mean, you can with weight vests and things, but traditionally in general you wouldn't. So it's all about using leverages.
Yeah, because I see you with the resistance bands and all those sorts of things, and that's the clear progression, I guess, to what you can do now with the flags and whatnot.
Yeah, that's I guess the cool stuff. The muscle up is probably the biggest thing most people see when they first see calisthenics.
And everyone wants to do it. That and the flag.
Yeah, and the human flag.
Yep.
It's funny, actually, like what I see is most Cali guys now just want to learn how to planche. That's by far what I see as the most popular movement at the moment.
Yeah.
Front lever and planche, by far.
So, Kev, you talked about Hangar before. Sort of started out as us as a friend looking on, like, what is this guy doing? And now it's become a pretty serious thing. Take us through that journey. So, I guess when you started and to where you are now.
So when I started working at Hangar as a calisthenics coach, and obviously being aware that it's a pole studio primarily, I wanted to try doing some of the pole tricks just for a few weeks, just so I could understand what sort of movements they were doing, so that when I teach Cali to the predominantly pole dancer clientele or members, I wanted to be able to relate a bit better in terms of what I was teaching, for example. Like human flag is your typical calisthenics movement. In the pole world, it would be like an INX or even an Aisha. And then, I guess 2 weeks in, I actually kind of fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. And there's like a massive fitness side to it, which I had no idea at the time. That's why I've kept going now for the last year and a bit.
So do the clientele there, do they usually do pole first and then they do the Cali to complement that, or is it vice versa, or it kind of just goes as is?
I'd say most of the people there would be doing pole primarily, and then they use Cali as a supplement to, as a strength, as a cross training method And I absolutely, completely agree that's the way you should do it too, or a way to do it. Like I did calisthenics for the last 4 years and I fly through most of the pole stuff because I've already built that base strength.
Yeah.
If I had kept doing weight training, I feel like I'd probably have bigger legs and I'd be struggling potentially. Actually, no, that's not true.
So you're pretty top heavy at the moment, we could say.
Definitely top heavy. Yeah, I've definitely come to terms with giving up leg size. All
Nice.
the jokes. You know all the jokes.
Well, I mean,
training legs.
yeah.
I embody it.
That's all right. No one looks at legs anyway. Do you find the women or the men, it's probably a bias, people think the men are stronger, women possibly more pound for pound stronger. What have you found?
Good question. There's definitely a wide variety of mix, to be honest. In general, I'd say the women are more flexible.
Yep.
And then in general, the men are more strength. So you need both, though, I think, in general, for some of the harder tricks. But that's not to say you can't do pole without having any of that. There's so much variety. There's dancing, there's floor work, choreo, and then obviously there's all the tricks. And there's a million different tricks, and not all of them need a huge amount of strength, and not all of them need a huge amount of flexibility. So I fully encourage anyone to try it, at least.
And what's the sort of breakdown? Is it people that are doing it for fitness, or is it people that are doing it just for recreation? Some in the industry.
There's it's a wide variety, man. I can't really say.
Everyone kind of just has their reasons to do it.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like working out. Not everyone's trying to compete. Not everyone's trying to...
Yeah, not everyone's trying to compete in a bodybuilding contest. Some people just want to look better for sex.
Fair enough.
Some of us do have Asian parents, and I guess when you realize that you really enjoyed it and you wanted to take it professionally, did you get any backlash? Did you get anything?
I guess was there consideration given to your parents?
Yeah.
It's like getting a tattoo. Do you think about your parents before you get it?
Yeah, I get you. When I started any fitness related stuff, I didn't really think it was a bad thing. So I never thought, with a tattoo, traditionally it's rebellious. I never thought fitness would be rebellious. Thinking back, I guess pole. So I remember when I first started pole, there was a light switch moment. It's like I'm about to post this on Instagram. Obviously, parents, family will see it.
Yep.
And it wasn't a very long process, but it did occur to me, and I was like, all right, here we go. Because before that, it was all calisthenics content, and
I mean, you had your shirt off a lot before that anyway, so
that's why I was like, what's the difference? Yeah, the pants can coming off.
the pants are getting shorter, the shorter, tighter.
Much tighter.
Yeah.
Leaving
So
less
you gave it some
imagination.
sort of thought.
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a brief thought, and yeah, my parents were asking about it. They called me one day, just to see what's up.
Yep.
I think they were sussing out if I was potentially no longer straight. So some funny conversations there. Had to reassure mom. It's like, nah, it's all good.
You're comfortable. You're comfortable with what you're doing.
Even if I wasn't, I don't know if that's the way I would have come out. If I was, I think I would have actually sat her down and talked to her. I wouldn't.
Yeah, that is a pretty big.
It's a weird way to.
It's a
break it
statement.
to her. Yeah, because the same thing happened to. I did a little bit of choreo and heels. I actually bought heels at one point,
Yeah, I saw that.
and the same thing happened. I was like, am I going to put this on my stories again? And I was like, yeah, screw it. It was fun. I did it. And I remember there was I think my aunties in Malaysia must have seen it or something, or my cousins, and they shared it with their aunties, and the aunties told my mom, because my mom doesn't use Facebook. She doesn't see much of my stuff.
Yeah.
And then I remember she called me about that, and then she was distraught, and she was trying to convince me to do Latin dancing and all these other sort of dancing normal, I guess, from her point of view.
Normal. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, nah, I'm actually enjoying this. I like the fitness aspect of it. So yeah, I think she's cool with it now. I think she hasn't brought it up, but I do still avoid posting any of that sort of content simply to avoid those conversations again.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's at least you're considering it somewhere. So
I definitely consider it. Yeah, I understand that my actions can have certain repercussions on family members, so I'm wary of it. I wasn't before, I'll be honest. I didn't really think too much.
So is it suffice to say that at the beginning they weren't, or you didn't feel overly supported?
Yeah, I guess so. Even with fitness, it was a long time when I was getting bigger. I remember my mum used to say stuff like, oh, you're getting too big, your head looks small. And I was like, thanks.
because the shoulders are too wide. Can't do much about that.
Yeah, it didn't really feel great. So that's why I never really shared much about it with them.
So from their perspective, was it more so to do with the stigma that came along with it, or were they? Is it that you were maybe breaking the mold from what they wanted you to do, or do you have any idea of where that was coming from?
Might have just been something different, right?
I have no idea.
Everyone's all sort of fears the unknown.
Get where mine came. Well, one of the things that I guess my brother did. Well, when I was younger, mum and dad used to be like, if you get your ears pierced, if you get tattoos, you're never coming back in the house again.
Yeah.
And then my brother went to Korea and came back with an ear piercing. I was like, yeah, you're out of the house.
Finally.
Oh no, it was a long time coming. No, but that didn't happen. So I think in my parents' head, it was kind of like, don't do anything that makes you like, it's about perception of others. They might have thought, oh, he's a little playboy, or what a cheeky little bugger, and then that's why they thought that. But afterwards, it's just like, nah, it's really normal. So I guess
That's interesting.
like now that I want to get a tattoo, but there's going to be
Are you gonna get a tattoo?
no.
I didn't think so.
I think really hard about it all the time. I've even got the design in my head, but I was thinking maybe that's all it is. I'm just scared that it comes back down to what other people are going to think about me.
We're all a victim of our, I guess, circumstances, but more so, our upbringings. We do most things to stay in line with that, to try and, I guess, keep in line with the perceptions, all those things. But yeah, it's interesting on the fitness journey as well. Because, I mean, I look at some of the posts. You're extremely active on social media, as everyone would know if they follow you. Just putting up workout photos or gym photos is a massive step for someone in terms of just anything, their confidence, whatever it might be.
Yeah, putting yourself out there, being open to criticisms and all the negativities of social media. But I'll be honest, I haven't really felt that much negativity at all.
That's good.
It's all been very positive. So that's why, you know how there's always talks about the negatives of social media and how it can affect your self-esteem and stuff? I didn't really honestly feel that much of it. I've always used it as a positive tool. Like, I don't know whether it's because of the way I curate my feed. Like, anyone that I feel is making me compare myself to them, or I don't feel good about looking at their content, I'll just mute it and maybe I'll start up again in a month or something. But
have you had much, any negative comments, even if it's in jest?
Yeah, there was a little bit of fun stuff. Like, when I started pole, there was a lot of banter with the guys.
Yeah.
But that all subsided within a few weeks. And
Nothing about your biceps being too big.
what do you mean, like being objectified or something?
Oh, no, just like your biceps being out of proportion to the rest of your body.
Oh,
Yeah, someone analyzing your build and saying, "Oh man, why is your right arm so much thicker than your left?" It's because I write with my right hand, obviously.
the leg stuff is something we always joke about in the calisthenics community. Like, in general, most of us don't have like the size of legs that you would expect with the upper body.
On that point, and it's probably the last one around the like social media aspect. I mean, growing up for us, we never really saw that many, jacked Asian guys in the media. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah,
it was usually the Kung Fu Master or someone like that, or
Bruce
like
Lee.
Jet Li, those guys who were specifically martial arts.
Yeah.
For you, then, do you think the path you've taken has that played any factor to you? The fact that there wasn't really anyone that we saw growing up, and now guys like yourself and others are doing it.
I feel like there wasn't really a proper role model for us to look up to, because I remember one of my very first role models was a guy named Han Champion. He was really big on like the bodybuilding community, massive jacked Asian, I think in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Australia I didn't see anything like that. So like, maybe I could do it.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to be honest, man. A lot of people do look up to you for the work that you've put in. Obviously, also putting yourself out there. I personally respect it because it's not something I'd be comfortable doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually think it's great you guys even started this podcast, because I'm same thing. Like, it's not easy to do this. So props to you guys for getting all this started, and even with the merch and everything that's on the way.
It's all about the
awesome
merch.
to see.
Now, for us, man, I mean, we've touched on it before. If we're just trying to put perspective for everyone. Everyone's going to be in similar positions in some way, whether they started working out because they were bullied or they just wanted to look better. For us, coming to a new country, myself, Sam was born here, trying to just put everything into perspective, and everyone's got their story and a motive for why they do things.
Just spreading our stories, our experiences, and the love and just the goodness of it. I think everyone could benefit from some sort of fitness in their life.
I really enjoy, I find it really wholesome that you make a conscious effort to block out all the bad things and then revisit in the future, and maybe that leads to, maybe that's the path to maturity that we all need to take, in terms of being able to siphon what's good, siphon what's bad for mental health, and yeah, I guess grow with it, use it to your benefit as opposed to letting it get you down. I think that's really sick.
1000%. Yep. Social media is just the tool at the end of the day to connect with people, and
Yeah.
who you connect with is, I guess, what helps define you.
That's such a good point, though, because we've had this chat about, you see on social media some rich guy, he's jacked, he's got all these women, he's got all this money, and you think that's probably how it should be, or that's what everyone's doing, and it gets you down in a way.
Yeah.
And for you trying to, I guess, getting around that.
I mostly just post either educational, entertainment, or stuff like that. I try to avoid that as much as I can. I understand how that can make people feel.
Well, everyone's a little bit different, Ethan. For me, it's seeing people, I guess, dunk the basketball, people like they're 15, 16-year-olds doing it, and then there's me just, struggling to touch the backboard. It's a tough life. It is what it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
I guess it's, in the terms of fitness, it's kind of have a goal that you know that you can reach within X amount of time, and then once you've attained it, then you can move on. I guess find new role models. That's what was important for me, because I didn't really have that much role models growing up. I realized how important it was.
I guess, that's a really good thing. So I guess the next question is, when you say that you set goals that are achievable, do you have ones that you think might be unachievable and you strive for, or in terms of mentally, do you prepare yourself by going, let's go to this step, then this step, and this step?
Because I know you've been getting into the gymnastics lately.
Yeah.
It's super impressive, because no one can even do a bloody chin up. You're doing the bloody Maltese crosses and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there something, as what Sam said? related to that?
I think in terms of calisthenics, I was always chasing longer holds on the planche and the iron cross, and then eventually transitioning, like you said, into more gymnastics movements. I don't know if I'm sort of at the stage where, like, I'm not getting any younger. I don't know if, like, physically I can even do it. I'll keep trying, but I'm also in the mindset of, like, this may not be achievable in the time frame that I want it. So I am focusing to try. I'm still trying. See what happens. I'll try not to get injured too often. As you probably know, I've been injured a few times.
I was going to say, let's speak about that for a little bit, because it's been pretty positive so far, but obviously when you work out to the extent you do, there's going to be injuries.
Definitely.
And I've seen a few broken
broken toes.
digits, we'll say. Talk about your injuries for a little bit.
So I think the worst one was, must have been end of 2018. Yeah, just before the pandemic. I think it happened in August. I was doing handstands at Good Life. They have like this machine where you do abs. You know, the one where you like put your forearms on it, you hold the little handles, and you raise your legs.
Hi.
So I was doing handstands on that because they didn't have any P-bars, and I was trying to do handstands on that thing, and it's like 1.5 meters high. Got the handstands. Meanwhile, this is at the end of my workout, so I'm quite fatigued.
Yep.
Just wanted to practice doing that. Went up, got the handstands, and on the way down, I sort of lost my balance and I couldn't really control myself. And that's when I like landed pretty badly, twisted my knee a little bit and tore my meniscus, and ended up needing surgery like 2 months later. So I was out for about 6 to 8 weeks. Admittedly, the surgery went really well, and modern medicine, I was back on my feet. 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long.
Yep.
And it affected legs anyway, so which I didn't really train. So I kept
no loss in that one.
And then fast forward, I don't know when. I think a year and a half later, I was doing like a one-handed back lever, or like a reverse meat hook, and the ring wasn't set up very high. So when I fell out of it, I kind of smashed my toe into the floor, and I ended up breaking my big toe.
Yeah, I remember that.
Times. Yep. So at the time, adrenaline was rushing, and I was like walking it off. I was like, surely it's just a bruise. I'll be fine. But then I was like, I better get this checked out. So I took myself to the hospital at that time, got an x-ray, and they confirmed it was broken. There was no surgery needed, or it's nothing you could do. So they just gave me like a shoe to wear, and I wore that for...
Was it like a cast?
It wasn't
or
a
hardened
cast.
shoe or something?
It was just it wasn't actually a moon boot. I think, public health, they didn't really have any moon boots. That's what the doctor said.
Let's give him a hardened shoebox.
They gave me like a Jesus-looking sandal thing.
And
Lucky double that.
sometimes some people pay for that. So you've had a lot of lower body injuries. Doing upper body. Is there anything upstairs that hurt?
Mostly shoulders because of Paul. It wasn't Callie. Paul had some seriously big injuries on the shoulder. I think I tore my left. I can't remember which shoulder now. Left or right, one of the tendons.
Damn.
I was injured at doing some dynamic spinning stuff. So that hurt for good, felt like 2 months as well.
So there are always tough times.
Yeah, it gets you down, honestly. Like, I can't do this anymore. And your questions like, am I going to be able to recover?
Because how often are you working out on your average week?
5 at the moment, 5 days.
Damn.
I was doing 6. Yeah, I fluctuate between 3 and 5.
So how do you deal with adversity? Sometimes you get to a point and you're like, shit, I'm at my peak now. How do you, like, obviously when you get injured or if you hurt yourself and suffer setbacks, you go, oh, can I do this anymore? Maybe I should move on. How do you deal with that? How do you push through?
I think just reminding myself to just move, do whatever I can. Don't get down. I think if you go, and this is advice I got from my physio, because I thought, with the shoulder injury, I should just rest, do nothing, or do very little.
Yeah.
He said, no, actually, you should do with this particular injury anyway. I should try and do whatever I can within pain tolerance. I've taken that mindset into any future injuries. Obviously with the advice of the physio or doctor, but yeah, just keep moving, keep doing what you can, even if it's just going for a walk. Just change whatever activities it is. Keep your routine up was the biggest thing.
Basically, do whatever you need to do to get back to where you were.
Yeah, don't fall into the rut, I guess.
Hell yeah, that's good.
For me, then, we sort of touched on it before in terms of what you're doing now in terms of work. To be able to take that gamble, I call it a gamble. It's probably not a gamble for you. I don't know. To take that step, rather, did you like, what position were you in? Where you like, I think I can be happy and do something else and not work a 9 to 5.
I think my mindset was more around just being minimal, just living within my means, and yeah, I kind of just adjusted my lifestyle. Like, I didn't really need, this lifestyle creep where you go with the cars and the clothes and luxury things
you really don't need.
Yeah, I found that it didn't really bring me that much happiness. I think I derive a lot of happiness from just the activities I do, the people I hang out with, and I feel, because I did used to chase a lot of the material things, and I was like, I had it there and it would just sit in like my wardrobe, and it'd be something you have to look after, whether you clean it, if it's shoes, for example. Yeah, and I didn't derive that much pleasure from it.
When would you say you made that realization?
I haven't really honestly thought about this. It's something I've had for many years, though.
It's probably just a gradual thing over time, and to realize it at 25-ish, that's a really good position to be in. I think a lot of us, I'm in the same boat, to be honest. I think you realize that the physical things they don't enrich you, they don't make you happy. It's never enough. More importantly, and it's the experiences, it's the time, it's the the journey that you can share with other people is way more important than trying to accumulate.
Alicia Keys also said the same thing if you listen to Falling.
Which line?
I will.
She doesn't really need the physical things.
Some people want it all. But I don't have nothing at all. No, it's a different song. That's If I Ain't Got You. Jeez.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Come on, man.
All right.
But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, on that, yeah, so you were able to take that step back. I mean, do you think other people in your position could do it, or was it something that you just given where you were at in your life?
I think anyone can do it. I don't think there's a perfect time to do anything like this. You just kind of have to, I don't know, maybe you wake up one day and you go, what if I do this? What if I try this?
Why am I slugging away to get a car or something that I really don't need at the end of the day?
I guess you just got to figure out what's important to you at the end of the day. Like, if it is important to you to set up for like family, like get married and have kids and things, like I think those things are important.
Yep.
So I guess for some of our listeners who are maybe sort of teetering on the edge, if you had advice for them to sort of chase their dream or to stay what you're currently doing, what advice would you give them?
So you got someone in uni, they want to be a hotshot lawyer. They think it's the title, it's the money, it's everything that's going to come with it. That's going to make them happy. Versus, what do they actually want to do? Is it their dream, or is it the ideal of it all?
Don't know if it's for you or not. If you're having doubts, maybe talk to your peers and people you look up to and respect and see what their thoughts are. Or look at, like I said with role models, like look at what they did, follow their steps. If you really want to be a lawyer, go find a lawyer someone that you can role model what steps you need to take. There's no really, I don't think there's a linear path to anything. It's always sort of wavy, up and downs. So yeah, in terms of advice, I think it's just go for it, whatever it is.
Did you lean on anyone around that time?
Not really, to be honest. I'm drawing blanks. I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, because I've always known you to be a pretty resilient, headstrong, focused guy. I mean, you don't get in the shape you are from bloody doing nothing or being lazy.
I've definitely built up the discipline to do the stuff on my own because I derive pleasure from it. Like I'm doing this for myself now. It's purely from an internal motivation.
I think the building discipline part is very impressive. I mean, sometimes people think it's there from the get-go. Sometimes they think, dreams come from nowhere. Sometimes you just wake up and go, why aren't I here already? But I think the grind is, or how you face the grind and how you sort of made that gradual change to get to where you are. I think that's really cool, really something that I admire.
I have heard from other people too, though, like, say you're doing the 9-to-5 gig, just do it, put it away once it's 5, and then you can focus for 2 hours on your hobbies or passions. You use that job, that income to fund or fuel that lifestyle that you want, You don't always have to drive pleasure from work. Sometimes it's just pay the bills, and then
so
the evenings do what you
work to live. Wait, don't work to live. Live to wait. I got this. Don't live to work.
Don't
work
live
to
to work.
live.
Work to live.
And find the things that you're passionate about during those other times. Sounds like a really good way to go.
What do you guys do? What do you guys do after? What do you think, Kevin?
I think you got to have, as you said, you got to have other stuff because if anything becomes all consuming in your life, you're just not going to be able to put enough attention to other stuff. One of my friends at work, he'll listen to this because he's a big fan of the show. He was saying life is like pot plants. And obviously the ones you focus on, the ones you give attention, they're going to grow. Unfortunately, you can't give them all attention at the same time. So you focus on the more important things, whether that's 2 or 3 aspects of your life. Bit of work, bit of family, and you enjoy going fishing with your dad. Prioritize those few things, and you're never going to have enough time to do everything. What were you saying?
That's true. Yeah.
Did you, Kevin?
Did you?
I was thinking,
At the Kevin Liu.
At the Kevin Liu. Did you mean like what do we do in terms of as in passion, as in hobby?
Yeah, your hobbies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess my biggest thing is the thing that I spend the most time doing is probably playing a card game. I think one of my big things is keeping my mind active. Not so
This is how he gets the chicks.
That's how I repel them, but it's
That's a card, isn't it?
repel, yes. Repeal.
What game is it? What card game?
Magic the Gathering.
Oh wow! Okay, I used to play that.
Did you?
I used to collect the cards way back when I was in primary school.
It's got a little bit cooler in my books. But yeah, that's one way that I keep, I guess, active. Like, it helps me make strategic decisions, helps me with playing board games, helps me with just finding a pathway in life. So for me, that was like the first actual hobby that I found. In terms of hobbies, I was similar to you. I sort of started playing when I was 26, 27, and it took me living in Mackay, being somewhat, I guess, a little bit bored to find it, but it came in a really strange time, but I'm really happy that I came across it.
Well, I give you shit about it all the time, but there's so many worse things you could be doing. Let's not name them, but playing a card game, which, as you say, stimulates your mind, it makes you happy. You enjoy it. So many worse things you could be doing.
For those that do play, it's often referenced as cardboard crack, so there's definitely better things I could be
Crack's
doing.
never a good thing.
But there's also a lot worse.
As long as you're enjoying it, you've got the community, I'm guessing, as well. There's friends you make.
Yeah, the friends have been insane. They come from all different journeys of life, and like if you saw us together, it would be the classic misfits. But Yeah, it's really cool. We go.
I think that's the thing too, like just finding a new group of friends, networking. Like the value of that is invaluable. Because like you said, it's just one activity, it's one hobby, whatever it is. But everyone in that comes from their own walk of life. Mingle and meet more people. I guess in the context of dating, I hear from a lot of my single friends, like, how do you guys meet people? And I'm like, literally just go find stuff you like to do.
Yeah, that's it.
More organically.
So about more magic for you, Sam.
Let's go.
Cool. So, Kev, we've got a segment here, rapid fire.
Sweet.
8 questions. No reason why there's 8. I believe it's lucky in Chinese, but no reason why there's 8. Don't think about it too much. First thing that comes to your mind.
Yep.
And this will, I guess, give a bit more insight into you. So, texting or calling?
Texting.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Favorite city?
Brisbane came to mind.
Done. I don't think anyone else is going to say that ever.
No.
Really?
The special, one of a kind.
Japanese or Korean food?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go Japanese because of variety.
I like that. Better culture too. Friends or How I Met Your Mother?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go Friends. That's good.
Sunrise or sunset?
There are wrong answers.
There are wrong answers.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunsets look way better.
Yep.
But I'll have you say, sorry, I won't have you say, but I've been enjoying sunrises lately. I've been waking up at like 5:30 every day lately.
Do you go out and do stuff or just to wake up?
Well, work starts at 7:45, so I wake up at 5:30.
Damn.
So I'm waking up before the sunrise.
Yeah.
That's been nice.
That's
because I've always been a night owl.
Yeah, me too. You wake up early too, don't you?
Are we going to start calling this slow fire?
Fine. Reality shows or docos?
Docos, yeah. Every now and then reality shows, but nah, definitely docos.
Cool. And the last one, you can give a bit of context to it. Pause time or rewind time, and why?
Rewind time because we all make mistakes. It'd be cool to be able to do over.
Fair enough.
Yep. Doesn't mean whatever the time is, whether it's 10 seconds or 2 hours, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it'd be cool to be able to, even though I live life without any regrets, I think just out of the two. Because what do you get when you pause time?
You get to savor in, I guess, the
moment.
time that you have or your current situation you're in. It's time stamped and you can live in it forever.
But it pauses everything around you. You're just moving around in this space where no one's moving.
I'm just going to take a second here and maybe give context. You just said that you'd take back some mistakes, but you don't regret anything. I'm not going to ask you for example, but I'm going to quickly share something that I would happily take back.
Sure.
When I was in grade, I think it was 10 in school, this is the one day that I rocked up to school late, and I walked into, I guess, roll class, and there were people crying. So obviously, me being a person,
You've told me the story. Yeah.
I haven't told many people, but
Keep going. It's funny.
I walked into class and I thought, did somebody die? And
Suffice to say.
suffice to say, somebody had died, passed away the previous day.
But how would you have known?
Yeah,
You wouldn't have said that had you known.
Of course.
It was me, just like me now, still done back then.
But you would have loved to hold your tongue, go back in time.
100%.
What would you have said differently?
Like, shit, is everything okay? Or just walked in quietly or done anything but
Why are people crying? Anyway, I mean, yeah, look, we all have those little ones.
my moment of shame.
So, Kev, man, what's next for you, man? Obviously, the fitness journey continues. Any goals, any comps, things that you're working on?
Yeah, so me and Marissa, so shout out to her.
What's her Insta handle?
X Marissa J. Had to think about
Give
it.
her a follow.
We're working on like a doubles routine. We've put an entry in. We're hopeful, but won't be too down if we don't get in.
What's the comp?
QPC from memory.
It's like a Queensland
division,
pole
state thing. Yep.
Yeah, nice.
And then my goals for next year is to do Mr. Pole Dance Australia. So I'm still working very hard to get myself up to that standard. Yeah.
Because you went to it this year, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It was in Sydney. It was great. I loved it. So it gave me a bit more insight into, I guess, what guys do in pole comps. Because I've only ever seen the female ones. Like I went to Miss Pole Australia last year.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see what the guys are doing. What I guess, what I can offer that's different. So
Yeah, cool. Anything else you're working on?
Personally, got other projects, but they're not really appropriate for this.
Only fans. I'm sure you get some
Shout out.
some heat. No, not heat. Sorry, you get some traction on that platform if you choose to go there.
There's some interest. I recently did that Q&A anonymously.
I think Alex
So many questions.
was trolling you on that. I think.
On some of them.
She might
Oh,
have
was
said
it
something.
Alex?
You can't see who actually
No, it's
responds.
fully anonymous.
Oh right, well yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it's not the first time though. I've had other because I've done Q&As before. And that's good to know, Alex.
She's always on it. Otherwise, anything that you want to give us a shout out or yourself, a shout out on? I know you do personal training. Obviously Hangar.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time
Come
there.
find me at Hangar. That'd be great. Obviously I teach 6:00, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So Saturday it's 9:00. Otherwise, I also do calisthenics at the park. Any sort of privates or any questions about calisthenics, just hit me up on the DMs.
Yeah, for sure.
They're always open.
Where's your main, do you have a base that you always train out of, or you just change it up?
At the moment, mostly it would be Hangar or around Kangaroo Point. I mean, there's another park near me as well.
When you say Kangaroo Point, is it by at the park there, at
Raymond
the peninsula?
Park. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it the peninsula? It's near Pineapple Hotel.
Oh, okay. No.
Raymond Park.
I'm thinking by the Storybridge Hotel.
Oh no, I haven't been to that one.
Yeah, the Pineapple. I used to play basketball there.
Yep. Yeah,
Sort
there's
of.
a basketball court and a little skate rink as well.
Yeah, cool.
No, that's it. That'd be cool.
That's cool, man. Well, guys, follow Kevin at the Kevin Liu on Instagram. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions or if you have anyone you think would be appropriate to come on the show. Send us a DM.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's installment of Growing Up Bananas.
Follow us on socials to stay up to date at Growing Up Bananas.